Good morning, Colorado. You are listening to the Daily Sun Up. It's a conversation with the Colorado Sun. I'm team editor David Krause. Before we jump into today's conversation, here is a quick message from our sponsor.
Take a day to focus on your goals and learn from top thought leaders. The Ames Community College Spotlight Speaker Series returns September 16th with best-selling authors Dan Heath, Susan King, and change leadership expert Cassandra Worthy, all live at the Ames Welcome Center in Greeley. One day, 3 powerful perspectives. Set the summer trend. Electrify your lawn equipment and help reduce harmful ground-level ozone in your Front Range community. Learn more at simplestepsbetterair.org.
Now, back to the show.
Thanks for joining us today on the podcast, Colorado Sun Readers. We appreciate it. As always, I have my great colleague, John Ingold, here to talk about health and medical news and policy. And we've got some other topics coming up, including a bunch of bear attacks. And we've got some tips for you on how to stay safe about that. Before we get into the conversation with John about his latest reporting, we wanted to mention that our political staff and some of our policy writers were involved in a Purplish Live broadcast from the Great Colorado Ballot-O-Rama, where they did a game show and went through each of the ballot issues and described what's going to be going on a very crowded ballot in November with things that you will need to decide what your policy is going to be and vote on those. And with our great reporters, Jen Brown and Jesse Paul, and people from CPR and some other great journalism outlets all together. And that recording is available on YouTube. And you can get at that from our site or from CPR or from Rocky Mountain PBS. So we encourage you to do that if you're looking for some help on your ballots. John, you've been writing about a conflict between GEO, which is a privately run immigration detention facility, and local governments and the federal government, all involved in a dispute over exactly what happened with a suspected tuberculosis case and whether there's been enough follow-up and enough disclosure about that. So what's the latest on that?
Yeah. So to get everybody caught up, so we haven't talked about this for a while, there was a reported case of tuberculosis in a detainee at the facility back in June. Now, normally in this situation, the state or local public health agency would investigate. There's a history of GEO sort of allowing investigators in to either conduct regular inspections or to do public health investigations. This time, GEO did provide some initial contact and then basically cut off contact. So investigators were able to have a conversation with the person who tested positive. But beyond that, they have not been able to get information about who this person had contact with, whether those people were tested, what those test results were, whether anybody got treated who needed to be treated, and now where all those folks are. So these are kind of the basic things you want to know to be able to do contact tracing and conduct a public health investigation. And the state and Adams County, where the facility is located, say they've been stonewalled on this. So Adams County issued a public health order demanding that GEO turn over this information. GEO did not comply with that. Then the state issued its own public health order. GEO did not comply with that either. Now the state has sued GEO, and they started suing them in state court to try to enforce the public health order. And it's gotten mixed up in a whole bunch of arguments that are related to now a completely different lawsuit. And Mike, I can go into that next, but I'll stop right here to give you a chance to ask questions.
Are they more worried about current state of health at the facility with guards coming in and out and potential cases still there? Or are they more worried about setting a precedent for the future and the relationships between a private entity and a federal entity and local rules about public health, all of the above? What are the main concerns?
Yeah, I would say it's both. And you raise a really good point, which is it's really easy to think of a disease that's, somebody who's a detainee at the facility has, that it's easy to think of well, that's contained. It's contained within the facility, but that's not the way these things work, right? People get released from the facility. And as you mentioned, there are people who work there, hundreds of people who work at this facility who come and go, come back into the community. And so there's a potential for people to be carrying tuberculosis outside and into the surrounding community. Now, tuberculosis is a disease that spreads through the air. It's a bacterial disease. It can only be spread, right? You're only contagious if you have it, if you are in sort of the active phase of the disease, which is when you're showing symptoms, persistent cough, right? Chest tightness, those kinds of kind of classic tuberculosis symptoms. But the bacteria that causes the disease can lie dormant in your body for months, even years. And if you're tested, you can test positive and you can be treated even when you're in that latent phase. So it's important to test people while they're in that latent phase. But if you don't know that you've been infected and you're sort of out in the community, you could be laying the seeds here for a much bigger public health issue later on. So state officials say they need to know this information to be able to track it down. So it's one, they don't really know whether there's something to be concerned here about or not. GEO says that it, along with ICE and the CDC, conducted their own public health investigation. They say that they didn't identify any other active cases, that the person who did test positive has been removed from the country, scant details about what exactly happened there and where that person went. And they basically say there's nothing to worry about here. We handled it. We're on it. The state feels like there's not been enough information here to feel confident in that.
I can imagine that the way the Trump administration has operated in a lot of other immigration issues, another part of their attitude might be, and besides, we don't have to tell you anything we don't want to anyway, and thus state lawsuit.
Yeah, so let's continue the story here. So there has been we have the lawsuit where the state sued GEO to get them to comply with this public health order. We also have a completely separate lawsuit where GEO sued the state over a new state law that was passed earlier this year that sort of clarifies and expands state and local public health authority over immigration detention centers. And GEO's argument in that lawsuit, which is filed in federal court, GEO's argument is basically you're interfering with federal authority here. This state law should be preempted by federal law because this is federal jurisdiction here, and you can't just assert this kind of authority. And a federal judge, on sort of a preliminary basis, issued an injunction against a portion of that law that agreed with GEO's argument. So the lawsuit overall is still going on. That specific law has the parts that are actually in effect has been enjoined, but GEO in that case didn't challenge other public health laws that exist, which we kind of have like this geologic layer of public health laws. You have laws going back many, many years dealing with investigation of tuberculosis, dealing with requirements that you have to comply with public health orders. You have some more recent inspection requirements. And then you have this new law that's now been enjoined in federal court. But you still have all these pre-existing laws, which is when the state sued GEO, that's what they cited. So now GEO in state court, there had been an injunction hearing scheduled there as well. That's now been canceled because GEO has filed a notice that it is removing the case from state court and moving it into federal court, where it's going to be debated on some of these other preemption arguments that we've seen in the federal case. So very much a complicated legal issue and one that does not look like it's going to be resolved anytime soon. And in the meantime, you have public health officials who are really trying to investigate an infectious disease outbreak. And of course, in that situation, the more information you know sooner, the better. So, Mike, let's switch it up here. You have been doing some reporting on, as you mentioned, bears and bear attacks. It's certainly a busy time for bears across Colorado as they're trying to fatten up and get ready for the winter. So a lot of activity there. What can you tell us?
Yeah, other kinds of public health warnings, or at least public safety warnings, coming from state officials. There was a kind of a scary, I guess all bear incidents are scary, but this one was struck home as a hiker. Angler was leaving the Two Forks area where the North Fork of the South Platte and the South Platte main stem come together southwest of Waterton Canyon, and was climbing up a trail from having been fishing with some other people, not even carrying any dead fish or caught fish, got knocked over all of a sudden by a young female bear, knocked over in the legs, and then the bear kept attacking and started biting the angler's legs. And after some time, the other witnesses and other anglers were able to scare away the bear. And this man in his 60s was taken to the hospital with some injuries that we don't quite know the extent of. But it's part of a record number of human bear contacts this year that they are warning people about. One of the reasons this is happening is because of the drought. Everything's connected, it seems, back to the drought. So if there aren't enough berries and other things growing because there wasn't enough snowpack in the high country and in the forests, and then there hasn't been enough rain to help promote that throughout the summer, then bears go looking elsewhere for easier sources of food, whether that's dead fish that somebody else has caught or trash cans in a suburban neighborhood. There was a bear caught in a tree in the West Wash Park and South Platte neighborhood somewhere between Sushi Den and Duffy Rolls in Denver over the last couple of days. So they're coming out. And one of the reasons they're coming out is they need 20,000 calories a day this time of year to build up to survive hibernation. And they are not finding it in the natural sources. And they're coming after other sources that bring them a lot closer to the rest of us.
So if I'm out this weekend and I'm hiking in the mountains or enjoying a Duffy roll in South Denver, how can I keep myself safe from bears?
Yes, you might be a little safer Duffy roll. It doesn't hurt to have a bear spray can in the car. But if you're hiking, absolutely. My family keeps sending me different cans of stuff. I've got way too many cans of this because they're all apparently worried about my health, which is kind of nice. But they come with the warnings from Colorado Parks and Wildlife that you should be taking bear spray with you, and you should be following a couple of other tips. And you can go to our Instagram channel this week where we're going to talk about some of these and show you some of the bear sprays. But short version of the tips are, while you're hiking, if you haven't seen a bear yet, make some noise, clap your hands once in a while, sing songs, wear a bell. If you like wearing bells, make noise so that the bear hears you before they see you and before you stumble across them and their cubs. If you do see a bear and they notice you, what you should start doing is back away slowly. Do not run. Running can cause them to become more aggressive just by their instinct. So they encourage you to keep eye contact with them and back away slowly. If the bear continues to show interest in you and come toward your party, you make yourself as big as possible, wave your arms, shout, sing, shout, "Hey bear," whatever comes to your mind to make a lot of noise. Let them know that you're a human and not some other kind of prey or some other kind of danger, because most of the time they don't like that and will turn around. And if they continue to come toward you and eventually charge you, then the bear spray is essential. So if it comes to that point, have your bear spray ready. Bear spray canister is a big canister. It's not the small kind of handheld can of pepper spray or mace that you carry on a late night jog or to guard against dogs. It's different than that. It looks much more like a full can of window cleaner or something like that. And the reason it's that big is if you wait until the bear is close enough for a smaller container that only shoots 8 to 10 feet, it's already too late. You want to use one of these big canisters that shoots 25 to 40 feet, and they say that on the label, so you can look for it in the description, that will get the bear before they're close enough to actually contact you. And it irritates them, makes them choke, makes their eyes water just like it would with humans, and you hope turns them away from this attack. So Colorado Parks and Wildlife is asking everybody who is going to be hiking, doesn't even need to be in the backcountry, it can be a suburban foothills trail, to take that with you.
So given how big this canister is, when you're out hiking, where are you carrying it on your pack?
It's the kind of can that could fit in the side pocket where you might carry one of your water bottles. You can stick an extra piece of Velcro on the outside of your pack and then stick the other piece of Velcro to the can and just kind of hang it there. Just wherever it would be easy for you to grab. And, you don't want people practicing with bear spray at home. One of the things they warn people about, it may seem obvious, but sometimes it's never too obvious to give a practical warning. It's not meant to be a repellent that you spray in advance on your tent or on your clothes or on your hat, like mosquito repellent. This stuff is so strong that you only deploy it when you're in absolute danger. And it's not something you can just practice with around the house. But make sure you don't spray it on your tent or anything. Think that that's going to keep bears away, because all you're going to do is choke everybody at your campsite and make everybody very unhappy before they need to be. So encourage people to look at these tips. Go to coloradosun.com, go to our Instagram channel and check it out there. And you can see some of the different kind of cans that are available, and be safe out there.
Well, our very own Michael Bearman Booth, appreciate your insight on that. And everybody, thank you for tuning in and listening. Mike and I will catch you back here later.
Thanks for listening. And finally, here are a few stories that you should know about today.
A group of skiers has filed an antitrust lawsuit against the ski resort industry's 4 largest players, arguing the operators conspired to inflate prices at the country's busiest ski hills. The complaint was filed this month in U.S. District Court in Denver and names Colorado-based Vail Resorts and Alterra Mountain Company among the defendants. Residents of a 120-unit affordable housing complex in Eagle were on course to be evicted in 2023 when the development went up for sale. But a public-private partnership involving Eagle County worked together to save it under a deal that also brought $13 million in renovations. Reporter Betsy Welch has the details. Instead of adding new roses, President Donald Trump's White House Rose Garden is growing statues. And one of them comes courtesy of a well-known Loveland sculptor. George Lundeen contributed a bronze depiction of Thomas Jefferson signing the Declaration of Independence. It joins statues already displayed there of George Washington, Alexander Hamilton, and Ben Franklin.
To read these stories and much more, visit our website, coloradosun.com. As an award-winning nonprofit news outlet, we take our mission of credible, independent journalism seriously, and you can check out our trust indicators at coloradosun.com/ethics. Our music is by the Denver-based Matt Skellinger Group. A link to their music is in our show notes, and a special thanks to Swallow Hill Music. I'm David Krause. See you next time.